Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. We are here with another episode of Alice in Borderland, the season finale, episode 8. And last before I can get into the last episode, one of my viewers actually requested that I try to identify the all the characters from Alice in Wonderland and how they're portrayed here in Alice in Borderland. So that seemed like an interesting exercise for me. I don't recall a whole lot about the story, um, except for a few characters that stood out: the Hatter, the White Rabbit, the Queen of Hearts, and so on. So it's interesting. I'm gonna do that at the end of the video. Just in the event that something or someone is introduced in this episode. So thought it'd be more fitting to do that at the end of the video in that discussion there. So I will be doing that towards the end of the video. And that should be very interesting to try to see which characters are being portrayed here in Alice in Borderland. So last time on Alice in Borderland, yeah, 10 of Hearts. The game continues, and it's a slaughter. But of course, while there was a lot happening, there's only one thing that I cared about in the last episode, and that was Kuina's battle against last boss. That was without a doubt my favorite episode of the entire series so far. And Queen, of course, I'll continue to say it. She's a badass of the highest order, and definitely my favorite character so far. We did get something of a flashback for last boss as well, but nobody cares. Queen. I mean, it's interesting that he he claims that he wasn't able to find a purpose in the real world, and I touched on this at the end in my discussion in the last episode as well, where he claims he was never able to find his purpose in life, but yet still he's here in this new world, only doing the same thing that he was doing in the last, which is just surviving. That's it. He's not living. I mean, there's just some irony in the statements that he has made and the claims that he has made, that he has no past. And it was interesting to see the contrast between Last Boss and Koina as well. Both having gone through transformation of sorts, but becoming something entirely different. So I mean, his argument, as I said, is a bit flawed because he still hasn't found a purpose, if unless that purpose is survival. But that doesn't differ from what he was doing before in the real world, which was just surviving, barely, just eating, sleeping, and that's it, just going through the motions. But it was definitely an interesting battle. The cinematography was great. The choreography was brilliantly done. And the nightclub scene with the music and all that, it was just well done. It was just well done. So hopefully we get more Kuina. I love her backstory. I love her character so far, and she's a badass. Hopefully we get more. Arisu was out of this game for the most part. He was freed at the end, and he said he has now figured out something. I've gotten no clues as to who the witch is just yet, but I can see that it's definitely more than what we're being convinced it is. It is the queen, the 10 of Hearts, so it has to be something relevant to the persons involved with the beach itself. And there was a scene at the very beginning, I think, of the last episode, where we saw Aguni and the Hatter. We got some a bit of a flashback with their origins as far as where they were before they were actually teleported here in this world, and when they first arrived here, and what the Hatter envisioned for the beach. Sort of a second chance for him to make something. And that's that falls in line with the Hatter character from Alice in Wonderland being a bit unpredictable and crazy. So I do suspect it has something to do with one or the other. It's clear at this point that Aguni is the one that killed Hatter, but for what purpose, and how does that tie into the girl that was killed on the ground? I don't see anything linking those two groups together. So it'll be interesting to see what Arisu's theory is so far. All right, that's it. I can't wait to see how we conclude the season. So episode 8 of Alice in Borderland. Let's check it out. What's this?
それ朝日のスマホ。拾った方のやつ。
Okay, we're following a different group now. Oh, wait, this is the girl. So is that the witch that was killed? I didn't get a good look on her face, but we've seen them a few times. I guess this is when they both first arrived here. They work there now. And she said they were brought there and they were brought to a place and they were working there. So they're not a part of the group of people that are playing the games, but they're playing the game now. All right, we'll see. Oh, 15 minutes. What are you doing, Chishia? How is he planning on solving this? Or is he just reserved to just die? Or just kill a Kuni. It's not that hard. You all outnumber him. When will he realize that not everyone cares about working together? Still a hard scheme, so there would have to have been some connection between the two. And I just don't see that. Well, kill him. I mean, why are they all hesitating to shoot a Kuni? He's the worst of all the people they've killed so far. He's probably the most deserving. Is he playing another game? Yeah. We know that. Fair point, which means he didn't want to. I mean, you could have just gotten rid of them, like you've been getting rid of all the other threats, right? I mean, if Naragi was out of control, let's get rid of Naragi. Okay, interesting. Just slap him across the face again. I mean, he's just asking for a beating. Creating hope for the people, but if it's false, I mean, what's the point? Hope is great only insofar as it moves you in a certain direction, but this doesn't. You're just wallowing in the despair here and just ignoring the reality. Oh, damn. I mean, he said supposedly Aguni does this to protect everyone, but he could have stopped Hada here, he chose not to. He could have stopped Hada here and taken control, he chose not to. But then later on he orders his military to slaughter everyone at the beach. So I'm not feeling that. Arisu getting his ass kicked again. So he feels he's the only person who's had to make a difficult choice in this world. I'm not feeling Aguni at this point, man. He's being rather selfish, just as the Hatter has been. Yeah, so that was a lie. You have no idea how to return to the real world. Yeah, the rules that you make up as you go along. Like some pretend king.
信頼できるダチが隣にいた。俺にとっての希望はそれで十分だった。
It's not enough for him anymore.
残念だよ、森ちゃん。
They didn't go there with the express intention to kill him, just to convince him to, you know, to stop his. Yeah, they had no choice.
俺もダチを見殺しにした人間だ。わかるんだよ。狂わせたビーチのやつらをあんたは皆殺しにしようと思った。
Yeah, were they though? It seemed like he went crazy all on his own.
だからハートなんだよ。このゲームは。黙れ!
And he's not hearing it. I'm sorry, why am I appealing to this madman when the game is still going and we need to figure out who the witch is? Just kill him and move on to solving the problem. Because he's not the witch.
ハートのゲームはいつも人をバカにしたようなもんだ。
Okay.
魔女が桃花自身って答えならそうなる。
Interesting. How'd he come to that conclusion, though? You're looking at the video footage that we saw at the beginning of this episode.
そう。
From what she said about working, I mean, she could feel some guilt, but I don't know enough to say that she would kill herself. Why are they even hesitating to kill him? Empty? Interesting. Nothing. I guess Hatter wanted to die. Interesting. The best person to do it would be his friend. I mean, that's horrible, but killing everyone else because of it. No, just no. The dealer. I guess that's what she meant by work earlier this episode. What do the dealers do exactly?
魔女は彼女。彼女たちも。
Now get moving, get the body to the fire. Why are we all sitting around? Could have stopped this a long time ago by just shooting a Goonie. I'm just saying.
ダチを殺した気持ちは俺にもわかる。生きてる人間をなめんじゃねえよ。
True. You guys really need to get moving though. The hell? The hell is he still alive? I mean, it's not even just the fire. The height that he fell from should have killed him. Insane. Where are the others with guns? There were several other people with guns. Alright, Usagi. Oh. Focus, people. The game is still on. The game is still on. I guess last boss dies here. I thought he would have survived this. There goes the beach. Now where will they all go? Let this be a lesson to you. Never gather everyone in one location. That is a disaster waiting to happen. So the card was inside the building with the flames. And who exactly guessed this card? I guess he does, but why? There's only one card. Just one card. Which doesn't do him any good now, because we now know the Hatter lied, and that's really not how to clear the game.
朝日が残してた動画。
私たちはゲームを仕掛けるのを手伝っています。ディーラーって呼ばれる人たちがゲームの運営をしています。プレイヤーを演じて混乱させたり、ゲームの説
So
明
they
を
have
手
their
伝
own
わ
set
せ
of rules that they're expected to play by, but they help set up the games. So they don't monitor them if they're not in a game. I mean, it seems as, you know, her recording this would be a violation of some sort, but she hasn't been killed. Essentially the stock market of survival games. Pretty much. Some of them seem to be enjoying their job quite a bit. That introduces some interesting theories as to what the purpose of this game is, but we'll discuss that at the end.
ビザもらって
Alright, so that's how they increase their visa
2
days.
週間生き延びるのにもう何人殺したかわかんない
Explains why she killed herself. Huh. No one's here. Oh. They are there. They all died. Is that because these guys won the Ten of Hearts game? But I mean, surely not everyone. I guess it depends on what the rules were, but yeah, looks like they died because they won Ten of Hearts.
俺が見込んだ
How
だけの
do
こと
you
は
find the place?
また会ったな。
I always happy to see Kuni, just not that guy.
どうやってここを見つけた？
これが地下鉄の路線図だってわかるまで随分かかったよ。
Really? You got here from that? Come on.
奴らはゲームの主催者じゃない。
Nope, just dealers.
そう。
They're just playing the game,
我々が
same as everyone else.
全員処分されたところ
Who knows? Could be. My guess is not aliens or God, but just technology that's being used. But you'll see. Hmm.
ミラ。
It's a chick from the executive board, right?
絵札を除く
I saw her when she left, but I guess interesting. She has been missing all this time. I just figured she died. Is this being broadcast to everyone or just the group that just won the numbers, all the number cards?
私たちからプレゼントがあります
戻れるんか。
Doubtful.
新たなゲーム
Face cards are here.
彼女がこのゲームの主催者。宇宙人が出てきた方がマシやったわ。
Okay. King of Spades.
必ず答えはある。
All kings. Jack, all the face cards. I guess that's what's next. Alright, everyone. There we have it. Our last episode, the season finale of Alice in Borderland. And I have some thoughts, but before we get into that, I did say that I would, discuss a bit the, what characters are being portrayed by the actual Alice in Wonderland characters that are here in this particular series. Yeah, I mean, from as I said before initially, I'm only going to be highlighting the specific specific characters that come to mind, because there are quite a few characters in the Alice in Wonderland, and I don't think we've seen every single one up to this point in the series so far. And interestingly, I mean, Mira at the end here, one of the characters who I was looking out for, who I didn't think we've seen, was Queen of Hearts, but watching the scene where she gives her speech, she's actually sitting on a throne on the screen there. So that gives me the impression that, and her supposedly being the game master, I'm not quite sure that is the truth, but I'm gonna wager a bet that she's actually supposed to be the Queen of Hearts here. So of course there are a few more obvious ones. Hatter, of course, which by his namesake, and he sells hats in the real world before coming to this one. So he was a Hatter, and his namesake in this world is Hatter as well. So it goes to say that he is the character who's the Hatter, and he certainly represents him in terms of his characteristics. But something I did notice though, um, uh, in reviewing the persona for all the Alice in Wonderland characters, it doesn't necessarily translate directly to Alice in Borderland. It something that comes to mind for instance, the in Alice in Wonderland, the majority of the characters that she comes across are not her friends. They're people that are trying to do her harm. Characters trying to do her harm or lead her astray, or characters that can't be trusted, and so those characters don't necessarily translate exactly to this particular series, because if you look at, for instance, the Hatter, who was one of the few characters who was actually trying to help Alice, here the Hatter is more an antagonist to Arisu, so it's not a direct translation from one personality to the other, because their motives are different in this series versus Alice in Wonderland. So that made it a bit difficult to kind of narrow down what characters are better suited to the characters here in Alice in Borderland. And even if memory serves, the Hatter in Alice in Wonderland had several characters that he surrounded himself with, all of whom were friendly towards Alice. But here in Alice in Borderland, the executive body that the Hatter surrounds himself with are all against Arisu for the most part. They're pretty much against Arisu. So there's no direct correlation between their motivations, at least. But we can definitely highlight some personality traits that can give us clues as to who these characters are. So Mira is definitely one who I would consider as the Queen of Hearts. The Hatter, of course, is, well, the Hatter. Alice is, of course, Arisu, and I will say the Cheshire, the cat, Cheshire the cat. I'm terrible at pronouncing his name, but I do believe he's actually Cheshire. If only because the first few consonants in their names are actually the same. But Cheshire himself is somewhat elusive, and he's always, you can never know where he's exactly unless he wants you to, and he's quite clever as well. So I think he fits very. He's of all the characters that I've noted, he's the one that fits the characteristics of that character from Alice in Wonderland the most. Cheshire the cat and Cheshire. So I do think that is what his character is supposed to be. Usagi, I didn't think we had she related to any character initially, but then I think it was the last episode when we got her flashback. We saw her with a rabbit. She was hunting for food, and so looking back at one of the characters that we were introduced in Alice in Wonderland, the White Rabbit, who's one of the characters that's not not working against Alice in Alice in Wonderland. I don't think the White Rabbit was against Alice. And we see Arisu now has her as a companion. So I do think Usagi is intended to be the White Rabbit in this scenario. Next would be, and this one I really have nothing to really support this, and that would be Kuina. And in terms of evidence in their characteristics, because the characters are very different between Alice in Wonderland and Alice in Borderland, but it's going to be Kuina as the caterpillar. And the only reason I draw the comparison is because of her backstory and the transformation that she actually goes through, both personally and physically, to become the badass that she is actually here in Alice in Borderland. And as I've said many times, she's my favorite character. I absolutely love her. So hopefully we get more of her in the future. And I believe she's the last character that I have on my list as someone who actually reflects their namesake in Alice in Wonderland. So I do think Kuina is the caterpillar, and that's it. I'm sure there are others that I probably would have missed. If anything, I think either Aguni or Niragi are actually some characters that I would have not equated to someone in Alice in Wonderland, but they probably are. So be sure to post down in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are on what my theories for these characters so far and their counterparts in Alice in Wonderland. And if I've missed any that you've noted, you can post down below in the comments and let me know who those characters are. On to the episode, and I mean, I would say the season ended pretty strong. As for the game itself, since we like to discuss, how to solve the games before anything else, so let me just touch on that for a bit. One of the this was a game of hearts, right? 10 of hearts. But thinking through this logically, and I will say that there are instances in the series so far where you have to suspend disbelief to buy into what the characters are actually telling you. At times, it doesn't do it frequently, but there are times where you do have to suspend disbelief there. And this is one of those cases with Arisu coming to the conclusion that he did with Momoka, because that there was no way, having known nothing about the character up to this point, that he would have been able to figure that out. It's just not possible. Recall that he's a new resident to the beach. He just recently got there, I think just a few days ago. He has encountered Momoka and her friend. I believe they were watching them on the at the pool. He came across them again when he discovered the dumpster, and I think he met them, one other time. So between 2 and 3 times is the only encounter he has had with these characters. There's no way he would know that she would be guilt-ridden to the point where she would be willing to take her own life. It's just not possible for him to know that. The thing with Aguni and Hatter, that I can see him coming to that conclusion with, as far as Aguni's motivations. That makes sense, because I came to the same conclusion because it became a bit obvious, and it was clear to us, the audience, because we were given information about their backstory. It made little sense that that Arisu would have figured that out so easily. I think he could have gotten there, but he got there a bit too quickly, because again, he has no dialogue with Aguni to know his history, to know his past, to know his relationships, nothing. Without the character's backstory, it's difficult for you to come to those conclusions. I can see where he can draw, he can make theories to come to that conclusion based on how he saw Hatter and Aguni interact, especially at the pool. But I think it would have taken him a bit more to get to that conclusion, especially since he's been tied to a chair for the most part for a while now. So yeah, I get him coming to Aguni and Hatter's relationship, but I cannot buy that he would figure out that Momoka is the one who killed herself. So I don't see logically any steps that you could take to actually get to the conclusion for this, to solve this particular game. You could have done it without people dying. That is irrefutable, So the military going on a rampage and killing everyone solved nothing. It only made things worse. Well, arguably not, because I think the only way you would have done this is what Anne proposed initially, which was to get the prince from the knife, and she would have eventually discovered that it was a reverse grip, right? And in that, she would have figured out who the witch was, if they had allowed her to work. But of course, no, they went on a rampage and started killing everyone. So of course, the best way to solve this game would have been to, again, even though it's a hard scheme, would be to let cooler heads prevail, and check the body, check for clues, and go through this logically to get to the conclusion as to who the witch is. Not so much as what Aguni and the Hatter's part was in all of this, because that wasn't really necessary. I think it was there to kind of close out the beach and Aguni's story and Hatter's story, but it really played no part in the whole game in and of itself. So that would have been the way to solve solve this game without anyone dying. Just going through the steps logically, in doing the investigations. They were given a lot of time actually. Most of that was spent running away from guys with guns, but had the time been used well, and would have come to some meaningful conclusion, or at the very least, Momoka's friend, the one that was the dealer that screamed that she was a dealer. Perhaps she could have helped to figure it out if she wasn't, if people weren't trying to kill her. So there are a few ways that this could have done. This could have gone on without this many people dying. Yeah, so that's it, guys. If you have any theories as to how this could have been done, be sure to post down below. Let me know as well. As for my overall thoughts on the episode and the season overall, as I said before, I mean, it's been an interesting ride. One of my nitpicks, I would say, for the series overall, I'm not the biggest fan of shonen manga. Well, not say shonen manga, but shonen protagonists. The manga and the stories I can always appreciate, but the protagonist not so much. Arisu is getting to a point where I like him, but he's not quite there as yet. He's by far not my favorite character in the series so far. He's not a bad person per se, and not a bad character, but he embodies all the traits that I expect from shonen characters. And you see that highlighted here where he's with Aguni, and again, this is one of those moments where you're forced to suspend disbelief because there's no way that Aguni is going to be standing there saying that he's a witch and no one would have shot him. They've been killing people all of an hour and an hour and a half. So on what premise would they not just kill Aguni? Of course, that wouldn't have solved anything, but they could have gotten that threat out of the way and moved on to finding the right answer. But he was there talking it up and daring them to kill him, and everyone was rushing him. No one would shoot him. So that was a bit unbelievable. And then, his, of course, wheeling on Arisu and beating him and kicking him. And Arisu's there, trying to get to the heart of the matter, which, again, realistically, in this situation where everyone's lives are on the line, that's not what everyone is going to be thinking about, because that has nothing to do with solving this game. And the easiest thing to do would have been to kill Aguni and move on and try to solve the game. But instead, we did it the shonen way, where it's we need to figure out what's behind Aguni's motives. What his why his heart has turned cold and he's become this way, and delving into his story and all that. And Arisu, of course, getting the crap beat out of him in the meantime while they try to figure that out. Again, unbelievable, but it's a trope that's done in shonen anime and manga quite often, because the expectation is that the protagonist will come out victorious because his motivations are true. And again, as I said, I don't particularly dislike it, but I don't love when it's the focus, right? Because here in the situation, the focus should be to find the witch, but yet still we're exploring Aguni's backstory to find out what his motivations are, when it's unrelated to the actual game. So that bit felt a bit like fluff. That's something that didn't need to be there for me personally. But I've come to expect it where shonen adaptations or manga or anime are concerned. So it's something that I have to live with the series, because that is what the source material tells us. I'm assuming. I haven't read the mangas yet, but I'm assuming that that's how it actually went down in the manga as well. So that was my nitpick for the series so far. If I had to choose a character, as I said before, Kuni is definitely one of my favorites, and Chishiya is close as far as an antagonist to Arisu, the protagonist. I don't think they're going. I suspect they may go head to head at some point, and I said this before throughout the entire series that I hope that is what happens, because one of the things that could get me around to having a bit more love for Arisu's development as a character would be if there was someone to challenge him on those, on his approach to certain things, right? Because his approach is that I can save everyone, no one has to die, and we know as the audience that plot armor will give him those things, but I'd rather not rely on that. I'd rather see a character challenge him on that. And I'm hoping that one of those characters will be Chishiya, because Chishiya has no issue with discarding others and taking lives to ensure his own survival. So what I would want to see is those two ideologies clash, to see both Arisu and Chishiya go head to head. And he did say here that he expected nothing less from someone who he has high hopes for. I think I'm paraphrasing, but I think he said something to that effect to Arisu at the end of this episode. And he did the very same thing initially when he tricked Arisu into going to the safe to steal the cards. But I don't think he thought too highly of him at the point. I think he even insulted him at one point there and said, he can't believe he fell for that. But having solved this game now, he has changed his how he sees Arisu slightly. But I think he still believes himself to be the superior of the two. And with that, I will say I do want to see those two go head to head. He said here that he's looking forward to the face games, actually, which is interesting. But we do have to remember that he didn't solve the Ten of Hearts game. Arisu solved it. As unbelievable as it was, and it was pretty unbelievable. Who's to say who's the more intellectual of the two? But it would be interesting, as I said, to see both Arisu and Chishiya, both their ideologies clash. To see Chishiya, on one hand, who believes that if people need to be discarded, they have to be discarded to get to the bottom of this, and Arisu, who believes that no one needs to be sacrificed, and they can all solve this together. So I want to see those two go head to head, and I expect the protagonist to win out, because that's just how shonen mangas are written. But at the same time, it would help to see Arisu earn that, rather than it being presented to him, and rather than the audience being told that is how things are. So that's my hope, or at least one of my hopes for the new season, or the direction that it takes. Again, I don't know where the manga takes this, but we'll see if we get a season 2. I'm not sure if this has been greenlit for a second season as yet, but I thoroughly enjoyed the season, so I do hope it gets renewed for a second season. As for other predictions, the face cards, one of the only thing that I was a bit disappointed with this season, it didn't feel rushed per se, but I would have liked to have seen more games and different characters. Occasionally we get snippets of other characters in games when they're about to die or something, but I would have been interested to see a bit more games. And of course, I want to see more Diamond games. That was one of my favorite games, the only Diamond game that they actually played for the duration of the series, and it was my favorite because it relied more on logic than anything else. I've said it before throughout the series that a lot of the games, despite the suit on the cards, they require an overlap of contributions, whether it's teamwork, wit, physicality. So there's always some overlap there. A clubs game that requires you to be physical, or vice versa, and a diamonds game that requires the same. I think the initial what was that game that they played in episode 2? I think it was a spades game in episode 2, but at the same time, it required 2 persons to actually disarm the bomb that was going to go off. So that feels more like a clubs game, especially since you needed teamwork to avoid the taggers in that game. So there's always some overlap there. But with the diamonds game that we played, that was it can be argued that required teamwork as well. But I think one person could have figured that out. Anne figured it out a few minutes after she walked into the room, and Arisu later figured it out by himself. So it can be done by one individual. And that game relied solely on logic and nothing random. A lot of the games so far have felt, for the most part, very random in terms of how you go about solving it. But the Diamonds game was pretty straightforward. Here's the puzzle, figure it out. and that was interesting. That was one of my favorite games, not my favorite episode, but my favorite game in the season so far. So I do hope we get to see more games, but with the face challenges, I do fully expect we will get more of that. I still remain a bit unclear as to the consistency of how the games are selected or the arenas are selected, right? Because at the very end here, we do see, Blimps moving by announcing the face games, but if your visa is not expiring, do you have to participate in the game? Even with the the game at the beach, the Ten of Hearts game, there were people there who didn't necessarily need to participate in the game, but they were given no choice. So initially, earlier on in the series, the impression was that, okay, you didn't, you chose to go to games, or you could, you let your visa expire and die, or you go to try to renew it. But clearly, with this last episode and last two episodes, that choice can be removed from you entirely, and you can be forced to go into a game. But with the face games coming up now, it's something that's being announced that, okay, here, these are the face games. But historically, you don't know what the games are going to be until you actually enter the arena. So why are they being announced here and now? And is it purely for those persons who have completed a set number of games? Arisu and his group and Chishiya and his. Or is this a case where everyone in the area is being forced to participate in the face games, even if they don't need to? So there's that question. Of course, we don't know. The Hatter or Aguni said the rules that the Hatter made up about collecting all the cards and that being the way out was made up. So there's no rationality behind it. So as it is now, we have no idea how to escape this world. Or why they're here. But from what Mira actually said, and from looking at the dealers, where they were working, I made a comment about it in the reaction that, it's the stock market of survival games. And because that's pretty much what it looks like. And that makes me wonder, and it takes me back to Batum, which I mentioned at the very beginning of this series reaction, where the persons are being brought here, and it's about gambling, and it's about people who are making bets on those on the island and amassing wealth from that game. So that's the only thing that I can surmise so far in terms of what the purpose of the games are. Is that it's being used as a gambling arena for persons to bet on favorites and who they think will come out victorious. And I think something similar was done in Batum as well. So that's my prediction so far as what the purpose of the games are. As to who's actually controlling it, I don't think it's aliens. I don't think it's God. I think it's just humans with advanced technology that's doing this. There's a heavy focus on our player Arisu being a gamer, and again, similar to Batum, the character was a gamer there as well, and in an online game. And I wonder if it's the same thing here, where perhaps our players, were maybe taken into some game, or we didn't see anything like that. We didn't see them playing in the virtual reality games, but it was discussed among Arisu and Chota and the others about some virtual reality, virtual world, or something to that effect. So I do wonder, since they are gamers, that if it's tied to that. Maybe they were given a game or a virtual reality game or something to that effect, and they were taken to this location as a result of that. So that is my theory. Those are my theories for the series and what my hopes are going forward. So that's it, guys. Be sure to post down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on this episode, on this season as a whole. Be sure to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys for season 2.